This is Gateway City Sports.
It's a trap!
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
This is the Team of Rivals podcast.
Everything you want to hear from the big sports to the big screen.
He's all by himself, fires into the end zone. Caught! Touchdown! No!
Vaughn into the windup in his first offering. Just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed.
He doesn't like you. I don't like you either.
Time winding down, Michael for three. Yes! She is gone!
I can't believe what I just saw!
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy! You believe in miracles? Yes!
You may fire when ready.
What?
Happy Valentine's Day, Cubs and Cardinals fans. It's Sunday, February 14th, and the Wags are going to have to wait because the Team of Rivals podcast is on air because Ron and I are here to talk about our one true love, and that's the Cubs-Cardinals rivalry. This is the Team of Rivals podcast, proud members of the Gateway Sports Network. And, you know, Yadier Molina has signed. The Cubs have made, this is going to shock you, Cubs fans. The Cubs have made a number of smaller moves. But really all that matters today, and the reason that Ron and I dragged ourselves out of bed and are not giving any attention to the ones we love, is because the Cubs have a reunion with the Pissy Pants, and the Cardinals discovered they have their own Pissy Pants. We're going to talk today briefly about Jake Arrieta and Jack Flaherty. Two peas in a pod. I would not, I could not be happier, Ron, if the two of them became besties over the course of this year so that they can complain about everything that annoys them. Because I have a feeling that there's more to Jack Flaherty's annoyance than just the arbitration system. I think he's just got a bug under his butt, and that's probably exactly why he's such a good pitcher. So before Ron joins us here, I just want to remind those of you who are listening to the podcast to make sure you go ahead, like and subscribe on YouTube, on Facebook Live, and also be sure to leave us a review when you listen to the podcast on audio. We want more. God, that was awkward. Ron, Yadier Molina's back. I mean, there's some good news for you. That's official.
So much. My first observation of this morning, other than just having some difficulty going back to what we used to do, and that was audio only. And my God, aside from that little hiccup at the beginning, this is so much more relaxing than streaming this live. I got to tell you that right now. That's my first thought as we kind of roll into today. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody, by the way. But, you know, I before we get, you know, heavily into our two pitchers here, I just will say that, you know, look, I think I've given my thoughts, and I've lost inventory of what podcasts I've said what on over this last week, but yes, so our catcher's back, our best pitcher from last year is back, and okay, all seems fine, but we've got a big addition, you know, that we've covered exhaustively. And if you're a baseball fan at all, there's nothing that we can say on this podcast about the Arenado deal that people haven't already read about, heard others give, you know, 10,000 opinions on. So I'm happy to not touch any of that this morning. Extremely happy.
Yeah.
We put an exclamation point on that. Yeah.
That's not what we're going to talk about, and we both know it. So flat-billed Pissy Pants, as Ron is fond of calling him, Jake Arrieta returning to the Cubs on a one-year deal, $6 million guaranteed. I'm sure that there are some other incentives built into that structure, but word on the street is that he had better offers available, but he was intrigued by the possibility of returning to the Cubs. Quickly confirmed by his wife's Twitter account, where she shows herself having a drink with Kristen Lackey, the haircut man's stunning life. There's a whole lot of nostalgia, and I guess the question for Cubs fans, if they're willing to step back and stop thinking about 2015 through 2017 Jake Arrieta, is what kind of pitcher is he going to be when he arrives in Chicago, and can the pitch lab fix him? Because he's seen a significant drop in his velocity the last couple of years, and we know he always had a complicated delivery. Are they going to have to rework him somehow in order to make him effective again, or are they just looking at him as an innings eater? In which case, why didn't they just keep Lester around?
That's a good question. I think I've seen that from a fair amount of Cub fans out on the groups and everything else, is that bothering to bring him back and not bringing back Lester. And what did Jake sign for?
1 year, $6 million.
What did Lester sign for? 5, right?
Was it 2 point? Yeah, but apparently he was willing to take as little as like $2 million from the Cubs.
It's a little bit of a head scratcher, I got to admit. I think we all understand, dumping used contract, right? But I don't know. Maybe they see more upside or more ability left in Arrieta, more gas in the tank, if you want to put it that way, than they did out of Lester. I don't know. Is it blowback is it blowback from Cubs fans that made them, think twice and bring another arm? I just don't know. I mean, what is it, Pete? Is it that looking at, excuse me, up and down the lineup that, hey, look, we still have a pretty decent core group of players here. If they play to their ability, the only thing that's going to hold us back this year is pitching. Was it an afterthought? I mean, what's your feeling on that?
Well, I don't know that we talked about it much on here, but there were reports that ownership has opened up the budget a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably been just as a result of things becoming more clear as far as where the vaccine is with the virus, the likelihood that there are going to be fans in the seats this year and what that means for revenue, some clarity on essentially what the luxury tax is going to be. And so they've opened up some more money in the budget to sign, to round out the roster. That could definitely be the case, in that at the time that John Lester was looking to sign, because he wanted it to be over, the Cubs didn't have that room in the budget, and then the budget opened up.
Yeah,
there's also a little part of me that wonders if the kind of flippant excuse that I made before about all the players getting traded away or sent away in the last several months from the Cubs, I also wonder if maybe there isn't a little something to what I was thinking, that a little bit too much of the bro culture in the Cubs clubhouse, and them wanting to get rid of some of those players, right? Kyle Schwarber's gone, John Lester's gone, and John Lester is not he's known for not always being the most strict rule follower, right? He was at the heart of the beer and chicken in the clubhouse incident back in Boston. So maybe you do weigh that and you look at it and you say, Arrieta is such a straight-laced guy and he's always in such a bad mood.
Maybe you're right. I mean, that could have something to do with it, I guess. But I'm just looking at this and going, well, look, we can't trade Bryant right now. Obviously, I think the Cubs have tried. I mean, do you agree? The Cubs have probably tried to do it. They're getting nowhere near the return that they feel that they should get. They can't deal him right now. And, okay, if we can't deal him, is Rizzo a question mark? Is he for sure thing that they're going to extend him long term? What about Baez? I would assume that they're going to try to sign him long term as well. Okay, all of a sudden they find themselves in a spot where, we've got to compete this year now.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of that. I think it might be the lack of adequate offers, but I also wonder if the trade market for Bryant wasn't just kind of in a holding pattern because all of the other third base options hadn't been determined yet. And I think that with Justin Turner signing yesterday, that probably crystallizes things. So I think that we're probably going to see a firm resolution on that in the next couple of days, because now we know who is potentially looking for a third baseman and who isn't, right? He's not going to Milwaukee, and Milwaukee was rumored to be one of the finalists for Justin Turner. The Dodgers are now not looking for a third baseman. There had been rumors connecting the Cubs and the Mets on Bryant. And there have long been rumors about the Braves and Bryant being connected. So it seems to, and possibly Toronto still, although I think that that's highly unlikely. So it seems to me that those are the places we kind of need to look. And I have a feeling that everybody involved is going to want to get some resolution on this in the next couple of days. The one thing I don't want to see, and that's been rumored, is that apparently the Cubs are discussing attaching Kyle Hendricks to Bryant in order to facilitate the trade and get back a better return. I mean, if that's the case, what are you spending money this year? Sneakily effective pitcher for the last several years. So to get rid of him, I can't see that there's a return on a trade sufficient enough for those two to actually want to motivate you to take that step, unless you're talking like literally a team's number one prospect. Or I don't see that happening. So all that to say, I think that we see a resolution on Bryant in the next couple of days, and I think that it happens pretty quickly. On the other side of the rivalry,
so you really think it's going to happen that quick? Like because I see him there probably at least to the deadline. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, but that's what I mean is I think that if he's going to get traded, it's going to happen in the next couple of days. Otherwise he starts the season with the Cubs, and then they reassess things as they get closer to the deadline. And if they don't perceive that they're in contention, then I think all bets are off, and you're going to see a fire sale. I think Wilson Contreras goes back on the market. Obviously, Bryant will be on the market. There's nothing to be gained by keeping him around. And then you start looking at the 1-year contracts that they did sign, or the guys who are on shorter term deals. So you could see Arrieta go back on the market. In fact, see Kimbrel back on the market, because if he pitches this year the way that he did for the majority of last year, who doesn't want a Hall of Fame closer available on a 1.5-year deal for relatively cheap, given his pedigree? I think you'll see a lot of guys, depending on where things stand with Baez and with Rizzo, if they're not in contention, I could see a fire sale just to clear the decks and to get back as much as they can and restart. I don't anticipate that being the case. I think that given how weak the NL Central is, obviously the only way the NL Central is going to make it into the playoffs is if you win the division. But is Nolan Arenado enough to move the needle on that to make them such a clear front runner? On paper, yeah, but obviously that's why they play the game. So I think we'll know a lot more as we get closer to the trade deadline. Yeah,
I totally agree. I mean, on paper, yes. And I would say that it's really not even solely the Arenado deal that I think that on paper at least pushes them a little bit over the top or gives them any favoritism in my mind. I think it's pitching in general. For me, is why I looked at St. Louis as being out in the lead right now. But yeah, you're right. I mean, you paper's one thing. Looking at a roster at this point in February is one thing. We'll see how it plays out. But if their pitching can hold up like it has the last couple of years, I think the offense is obviously gonna get some marginal improvement at worst case scenario, and that'll be a good thing for them because we know that's been the weak spot.
And I wonder. Obviously, there's always angst when the projection systems come out, and we've talked about PECOTA ad infinitum. Every year they come out, and you're always pissed. And I just thought about it as you were mentioning that, and I wonder if maybe part of the reason why PECOTA is giving projections that have people so up in arms is because they're actually taking into account the likelihood that we're not going to see pitchers pitching more than 130 innings this year, right? Because they're ramping up from last year where the best starter only got, what was it, about probably 15 starts. Nobody's going to pitch 200 innings. And so maybe they're taking a look at it and they're saying, okay, a marginally effective pitcher who would provide no value in a regular season because he's not going to make 30 starts. Well, you're getting max value out of him over the course of the 20 starts he is going to make. And so the minor leaguer that you bring up is going to provide marginal value relative to sending Alec Mills out for 30 starts. If you can limit Alec Mills to 20 starts and you get, I don't know, somebody from AAA with the Cubs to come up and make the remaining 10 starts, that may be more valuable because Alec Mills' arm isn't worn down. And then on the opposite side, somebody who you would count on to make those 30 starts, like Jack Flaherty, probably isn't going to make all 30 starts. Or if he does, he's going to be limited in his innings, and he's not going to go 7, 8, 9 innings in any start unless it's really close to the end of the year and you really need to make a push because you're going to want to protect your arms. And so the effectiveness of those elite pitchers is going to be mitigated by the fact that they're not going to pitch as many innings this year. They may make all their starts, but they're not going to go as deep into games as they normally would. And so then you're relying on the bullpen. And obviously things tend to even out over the course of the year among most teams' bullpens, because most bullpens aren't tremendously effective, or if they are, they're not always effectively deployed.
Yeah, which really comes into question, though, because that's one of the strengths that I believe St. Louis still has, and that is just the depth of arms they've got. They've got a lot of guys that can start. No, I even excluding him, but he's a bullpen option, though, and he has been, right? He's bounced back and forth the last couple of years. So I think the depth in their bullpen is something that, it's probably hard to account for in those projections. There are a lot of new names there, but the Cardinals probably have 7 or 8 guys that could start, and that will this year. Not all of them are going to start with the big league club, of course, but they have a lot of depth, and that's one of the things that's helped out their bullpen is they have some long inning guys that can go in there, like a Ponce de Leon or John Gant. So they've got these guys that could start. Obviously, there's not enough spots for them, but in a season where you anticipate at least early on that guys aren't going to be able to go 100 pitches, they're going to be pulled probably well before that. We do have some long innings guys in there. So, and the other thing about these projections, and I know I get crabby about those every year, but were those projections made before the Arenado trade? Because even before that trade happened, I think I just mentioned it. I probably would have looked at St. Louis as not, I'm not even going to say a strong favorite, but a favorite at this point right now because of the depth of their the arms they have. We'll just see. I mean, they have a lot of guys. I don't know if they have a lot of guys that are solid 1 through 5 in a rotation, but I'm confident in their bullpen. One, we've got a plus coming back in Jordan Hicks. I don't expect him throwing 106 miles an hour fresh out of spring training. He is coming off Tommy John surgery, but that's a plus getting him back. I don't know where Martinez is going to fall. I think they're going to try to get him in the rotation early on, but I don't expect a ton of innings out of him, to your point. I don't know. I like the depth they have, but we'll see. I mean, these guys got to come ready to play. Having a lot of guys doesn't mean much if you're not getting quality out of, at least 3/4 of the pitching staff.
And speaking of getting quality out of the pitching staff, and by the way, my understanding is, Pacoda did take into account Arenado being slotted in.
Yeah, it's even more.
So I don't know how that affected the rest of the.
Well, I think a point I made, I don't know if it was Facebook or Twitter. Like I said, I lose inventory of what I even say on every podcast from week to week, but I try to stay consistent as possible. Look, it wasn't even about the Cardinals not being in first place on that projection. It was having Milwaukee up top on a lot of them. That's what just. It's perplexing to me. Like, what in the hell are they? What are they seeing that the rest of the world, Pete? I'm going to go that far. You get these projections, and I know Pacoda was one of them. There was another one that came out. I don't remember the name of it, but having Milwaukee up top, somebody's going to have to walk me through that. And I might agree at the end of it, but initially, I probably feel like you did. Like, what in the hell are they seeing that we're not? And when I say we're not, I mean everybody. Everybody, even Brewers fans, if they're honest with themselves, are going, wow, we shouldn't be there.
Yeah, because you look at it and you're thinking you can't possibly be taking into account their successful deployment of their bullpen in those projections, right? Because that doesn't, as far as I understand, that doesn't come into account. Like, managerial decisions do not come into account. They're merely projecting it based on past performance. And so I guess that's assuming that, because their lineup is not strong.
I know.
Do they really think that the addition of Colton Wong has suddenly made the Brewers playoff contenders?
That would
really?
It would be hilarious. It would be hilarious if it was. Yeah, don't know, man. Don't know. It's it's funny. I don't take it too seriously. I know I get a little crabby about those things, but it's not something that keeps me awake at night.
Speaking of pitching, let's get to the other news that came out yesterday and that provided Cubs fans endless amounts of enjoyment as we all popped our popcorn and watched Jack Flaherty express on social media his pleasure with beating the Cardinals in arbitration, and not only beating them, but beating them by a significant number, $900,000. So they were almost $1 million apart. and he posted two relatively common memes right after Robert Murray reported that he had won his arbitration case, including one of Michael Jordan sitting in his home saying, and I took that personally. How long does Jack Flaherty last? And does this bother you that your ace is apparently pissed at the team when really, I mean, ultimately, let's be honest. He needs to be pissed at the system that his predecessors and he, as part of that system, signed on to. All that having been said, though, he's not happy with the Cardinals right now.
No, it would appear that way, right? And even if his point is more pointed at the deal and at Major League Baseball's pay structure, the way it's coming across on social media is, to me at least, it lands on me as like a little bit of shot back at your employer, and and his employer is the St. Louis Cardinals. So look, let me go back for a second. Look, I have no problem with players voicing their opinions on social media to a point, right? I mean, we all dealt with Trevor Bauer in this offseason. We heard what he had to say as they were trying to plan or make plans or agree to start the 2020 season. Like, we heard all about that too. You know, the Black Lives Matter with him and Dex sitting out a game. Look, I understood that as well, and I had zero issue with them wanting to do that. And you know, even with the pay structure, you know, taking a shot or two at it. Look, I want players to get what they deserve. And you think about it, Pete. You know, here I am, a pretty good pitcher, and I'm looking over at a guy maybe in the clubhouse that's going to start, you know, that's making $30 million this year. Another guy that's making 20. You know, I'm a significant contributor to this team, and my own employer is telling me I'm only worth $3 million. You're paying that guy down there 20. You're paying that guy across from me 9. You're telling me I'm only worth 3. I get where that would come from, right? I mean, I can't relate to those. None of us can relate to the dollars here, but you get my point, right? I'm a big part of this team. I started on opening day. You're telling me you're arguing that I'm only worth this while you're paying that guy there 9, and I'm just making these numbers up. Some of them are real. So I understand that. So, you know, I hope that I hope for the players that they can get something adjusted to where these guys are making more earlier in their career. Because we know how this works, right? Some of these guys don't hit free agency for the first time until they're 29, 30, sometimes older, depending on when they started. And they may never get that big payout. They may never get that big payday. So I do hope that something changes where these guys can make a little bit, make more money earlier in their career. So that's the issue. Here's what I don't like, and here's what lands on me the wrong way. Well, first, let me throw 2 facts out, and I think it applies to both of us. I don't know what Jack's like in the clubhouse because I'm not there. You're not there. And I haven't read anything from any reporter that describes this guy as a clubhouse cancer. So, Facebookers, I call them headline barkers. You guys that don't bother to read the article, you just look at the headline. You don't know what Jack is like in the clubhouse. I've seen it already, Pete. I could predict it coming. We don't need a guy like this in the clubhouse. You have no idea what he's like in the clubhouse. You point to something that a credible journalist has written down that says Jack Flaherty is a problem in the clubhouse. I haven't read a single sentence that expresses any of that. So I'm already annoyed by that. More annoyed with fans today, of course, than I am with the story itself. So we don't know. I've never sat through an arbitration hearing. I don't know what's said there. I don't know what hurtful, what kind of offenses are thrown or what kind of shade is thrown at any kind of player from a club that's saying, hey, you're only worth this much and these are the reasons why. I've never sat through an arbitration hearing. Have you?
I haven't, although okay. I have read some accounts of them, and
they can get nasty.
Apparently they are. It can be pretty. It can be pretty bruising for the player, right?
Right.
To have the team that they play for come in and say, these are all the reasons that we don't want to pay you. You know, we don't believe that this is sustainable. We're not, we don't think that he's one of the top 10 defenders. Like they lay out every. Well, and
it's probably offensive for the reasons.
A legal case.
Yeah, and it's probably offensive for the reasons I gave early on, right? That hey, the guy like 2 locker spots down from me is making 9. And here's our number 3 guy in the rotation. I'm number 1. What the hell are you talking about? So I get it, right? So Pete, just like when there's a conflict between just the players union and Major League Baseball, like we're all getting ready to experience that. We'll be talking about that a year from now. Well, we're going to be talking about it the whole year, right? But it's going to get heavy next off season as we approach this next CBA. I know it's a long way to me to answer this question, but I still feel that contract issues, labor negotiations, I don't necessarily need to hear about that shit on social media. In fact, I don't even want to hear it. I want them to handle their business behind closed doors. To me, all for players getting what they deserve. I really mean that. But in the case of Jack, you won your case, right? You said, no, I am worth 3.9. The Cardinals said, no, you're not. You're worth 3. The arbiter agreed with Jack. Jack is worth $3.9 million. He won. His statement was made, in my opinion. The Cardinals were wrong. I want to see it stop there, Pete. Him posting it like that on social media is a taunt. It's just like when that defensive back knocks the ball out of the receiver's hands and then gets in their face and waves their finger, that no type of thing. You get a flag for a taunt. That's exactly what this feels like to me. It's a taunt. I personally don't like it. And I've stood with Jack, not that it means anything to him coming from me, but I've stood with him on many of the things he's been vocal about. I don't like this one. I don't like how this arbitration thing is all handled by the players or by the teams. I know it probably gets ugly, but it's a bad look for Jack because you got to understand there are so many fans out there that will not think about this other than just surface level detail. And and half of them are automatically pissed right now. They're not happy, and they're already saying, well, he's gone, trade him. All the nonsense you would predict that you would read, it's all happening. And so maybe he doesn't care about that. Fine. He doesn't have to. But for me, I think it's a bad look on him. To go out to feel the need to take a statement out on social media, a taunt, just doesn't feel right. Right? And it isn't me siding with the Cardinals or him necessarily. I just don't know why the need to put it out there on social media in that manner is necessary. It doesn't feel necessary to me. And it's a bad look. And by the way, so a couple other things. Look, I know that some have already declared Jack the next Cy Young, the next Roger Clemens, minus the steroids. But I know some people already think, and this is a lot of Cardinal fans, like, they love the young guys. The young guys are the way to go. They're the only thing we need. Andrew Kisner's he's already the best catching option. He was last year, by the way, according to some Cardinals fans out there. They just love their minor leaguers. They love the newness. They love the new guys. And they always default to that. Jack had a really good second half of 2019. He really wasn't that good in 2020. So you got your payday now. And I hope you get one in the future, but now he's got to do it out on the field. And I have no doubt he has the confidence that he can, Pete, but he better do it now. You're going to boast like that. All right. So I hope you show up. Look, it benefits all of us as fans more if he's actually performing, but now he's got to do it, right? If you're going to talk it, there's a lot of people are going to want to see you do it now. And now I can't predict the future. I don't know if his destination is LA, like some people seem to think it is, that he's not going to stick around. I don't know that this necessarily changes his view. I know a lot of people overplay this too much and they say, well, he's gone. He's never going to stay here. Maybe not, but I don't know that he's already made his mind up that he's leaving St. Louis. I think that's too early in his career to be thinking like that. I could be wrong, but I'm not into that prediction yet. I don't think that it's a for sure thing that Jack Flaherty thinks he's too good to remain in St. Louis. I'm not there. But very long answer. Sorry, but I was pretty fired up yesterday when I initially read that stuff. I'm just like, why the hell does anybody? It's like going through a divorce or a breakup when one of the spouses has to go run to social media to garner to assemble my support team. I have to do it on social media. I don't understand why people feel they need to do that. I really don't.
Yeah, and I think that a big part of this also comes out of the fact that he's the Cardinals players rep. And so he feels compelled to represent the players and to move the ball forward. And that's why you didn't see them settling on a salary, unsurprisingly, right? He's going to look to push it. And also I'm sure that there's, there's a lot of animosity on his part, again, with the system, simply because this is his first year through arbitration, right? Previously, he had his salaries imposed by the Cardinals per the terms of the negotiated agreement with Major League Baseball, right? And so last year he got $604,000 was his salary, which is only like $40,000 more than the league minimum. So you can see why he wants to push it, because everything builds on it. But he's arbitration eligible through 2023. So you guys have to go through this 2 more times. And
it'd be fun though.
I mean, my God, and you're probably going to see the same thing, although I'm sure he'll be chastened by it based on the reaction here. You'll probably see the same thing from Ian Happ. He's the Cubs players rep, and he also is going to trial with the Cubs. There's no settlement there. So, and that's the problem. And this is one area where we agree, Ron, because I think that it's no surprise. I think I tend to come down a little bit more on the owner's side when we talk about baseball. But I agree with you. I think this arbitration system is just a mess. And I think that sports in general, even though we're talking about much larger numbers, I think sports in general would be a whole lot better off when it comes to compensation if they took the same approach that our employers take. Well, mine doesn't, but that most employers take with their employees is you get a salary, and here's what the base salary is, and then there are all kinds of bonuses, all kinds of incentives set up, and those incentives could be huge. Right? Because then I think that the players would feel far more well compensated by the system if they were to agree to a system like that. Now, obviously, the owners would balk at that because they would have no cost certainty going into a year. But that's why you budget the way that you do, and you leave room for guys. So if Jack Flaherty and Adam Wainwright were both in on guaranteed $5 million deals, but there were all kinds of incentives built in that if they hit certain numbers, they could get up to 30 million, 35 million. Well, then I think that everybody would be satisfied with that, because the guy who hits those numbers, and the guy who hits those numbers out of nowhere, right? A late developing player. That's what you want to see, right? You want to see guys rewarded for their performance this year, not being rewarded for what they've done in the past, because I don't think that any of us disagree that Yadier Molina and Adam Wainwright are probably both being overpaid this year based on what they're going to bring to the team. But you're paying them for what they have done in the past, and you're not going to get that kind of return.
No.
How you would set up a system like that,
anywhere else, you're right. I mean, we know that. Anywhere else, they're not getting contracts that size. And, that's I have no doubt they wanted to remain where they were at, but they obviously couldn't find a significantly better deal anywhere else, and so they weren't going to get it. I know it's interesting. The incentive. I don't know where they're going to go with this. I know that it has to improve for the players, and it should. And with the way teams are looking at things now, we're not. A lot of them taking the stance of they're not going to pay for past performance. Some teams won't, and they're looking at, we're going to pay for what we believe we're going to get, and that works against players. Having a shot at their payday later in their career or mid-career, or what. There's just not a lot of guys that are going to get handed big offers past age 30 anymore. So I'm all for them getting more earlier in their career. But I mean, there's probably a bunch of ways to do it, Pete. I certainly haven't thought them all through or read about all the possibilities, but I'm just kind of mentally preparing myself for the ugliness that's going to be, next winter. And it's, we're going to get a healthy dose of it, I think, during the season as things, as the end of the year approaches. So get ready for more of it. We're going to hear from a lot of players. It's not just going to be Jack. There's going to be a lot of players squawking. So buckle up.
Yep. And we're getting close. I think don't pitchers and catchers report. I think is it this week or is it next week?
It was supposed to be.
So we're close.
Supposed to be. I thought it was supposed to be this week, but I think they did push it back. Could be wrong, but I think they pushed it back.
So Point being, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's Monday, February 22nd, so we're less than a week out. So I would imagine that we might see a flurry of smaller deals as rosters get set. But this is it, man. Baseball starts in a week, supposedly. So it should be exciting. But we'll obviously keep an eye on things. But I think we covered it. You?
I think we did, but I do want to mention a certain group. We're talking about contracts and guys getting paid earlier. What do you do with all that money? What do you do to protect that money? So look no further than the Wiley Group, which has 2 locations in Festus and Arnold, Missouri, to serve you. They offer home, auto, boat, motorcycle, business, life insurance, investments, and much more. They can offer a customized approach unique to your situation to make sure you and your family and assets are properly protected. They offer great rates and savings, so give them a call today at 636-764-6294 to do an insurance review or just talk sports. If you don't have time to call, feel free to email Sean at SeanWiley@allstate.com. That's Sean Wiley at allstate.com.
Ron, that was such a brilliant transition. I don't know that we should add any more content to this show. I think that's the perfect way to go out.
Have at it, my man. Tell them where they can find us.
That's right. Well, when we are live, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope, although Periscope only for about another 6 weeks, I think it is. And then it's going the way of Friendster and MySpace, although MySpace still exists.
What?
Anyway, you can find the Team of Rivals anywhere.
Is that true?
Yeah, and MySpace still exists.
Okay.
Maybe we need to set up that's why we haven't gotten to that next level. We haven't set up a MySpace page for the Team of Rivals podcast.
Definitely not. Okay.
So somewhere on here in the future, you'll hear that you can find the Team of Rivals podcast anywhere and everywhere. Our website is teamofrivalspodcast.com. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Team of Rivals Podcast, and you can find us on Twitter at Team of Rivals Pod. And who knows, maybe someday you'll be able to find us on MySpace too. You can send us an email at the show at teamofrivalspodcast.com. You can find Elliot on Twitter at TOR_Elliot. You can find Ron at TOR_Ron75. Here's a funny side story about my Twitter handle. So I did, as you know, Pete, I do the Two Birds on a Bat show on Tuesdays, and I don't handle the social media posts. That's Jim Cromer that does that. So he tags TOR_Ron. And that account, it's suspended now. And I don't. Please tell me it's porn. Please tell me it's porn. Please tell me it's porn.
I don't know. No, it's suspended. You can't see anything because I clicked on it. I'm like, I'm like wondering why the notification didn't come up that I was tagged in, a show that I did, and I see the handle, and I click on it, and it says account suspended. So I'm sure the guy's pretty cool, but obviously he's got a little badness to him as well. So I'm not sure why he got suspended. My first fear and thought was, oh my God, this is account suspended. For the same reasons Donald Trump and his followers were suspended. And I'm like, please tell me it's not somebody like that and they think that's me. That was my biggest fear. Of course, the nightmare could be this is one of the guys that raided the Capitol. And
he's the Viking.
I did think about all that. I'm like, oh, please, God, tell me that this person isn't involved in any of that because I don't want people to think it was me. But anyway, so yeah, it's 7-5. You got to end mine in 7-5.
Although someday he's going to change it to 4-8.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, maybe.
Although you'll be changing your Twitter handle every year as a new assessment goes out. If you are watching us live, you're not today, but if you ever are watching us live, be sure to catch us anywhere you listen to podcasts. We're on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Stitcher, or anywhere else that you listen to a podcast. So whether you watch us live or listen to the audio, be sure to like and subscribe and leave us a comment or a review. You can easily review the show by going to ratethispodcast.com/TOR and following the simple instructions. And as always, don't forget to make your review a good one. And finally, don't forget to check out the rest of the Gateway City Sports Network, including the Derek King Sports Show every Wednesday at 9 a.m. on Facebook Live and 2 for 3 with Moose Michaels. You can find all that and more at gatewaycitysports.com. Ron, this has been tremendous. The boy is up. I know that he wants to go get some donuts from Stan's.
Oh, yeah.
I imagine that you have something planned for your WAG. So I guess we'll wish everyone a happy Valentine's Day. We'll discuss offline, but highly unlikely that we're going to have a show this week. But if anything happens to pop up, we'll be able to get online and do something. So, Ron, closing thoughts?
No, I'm not used to doing stuff this early. I feel a little bit foggy, but we got through. It's like the good old days, though. I can tell you, I'm still way more relaxed than having this camera on. Right now, you guys would see an unmade bed. and that's about it. So, all right, no, glad we got to get something in this week. I know it was a hell of a week, and we couldn't do a show on Thursday, but I'm okay. I'm okay doing this. I'll settle for this. This is good.
Terrific.
All right. Well, everyone, we will if we're back up and ready on Thursday night, that means something happened. If not, you'll hear from us the next week or so, and maybe we'll do another audio thing. Who knows? It's all this is all fun. We're just going to roll the dice every week, and we'll pop up wherever we decide to pop up because you guys are getting this content for free. But we love you anyway, and we'll see you soon, folks. Bye-bye.